Well, for more this week, can speak to the New York Times journalist Tariq Panja, who has been covering this story this week. Good morning to you, Tariq. Good to see you. What have you made of the developments this week surrounding Roman Abramovich and Chelsea, and does he have no option but to sell?
Yeah, I think it sort of followed a pattern that once it emerged in Parliament that there's the risk of sanctions. We saw the first attempt to try and create this trust, and then it quickly became clear that that was almost not going to be tenable or would take a very long time because of the Charity Commission, etc. And then we have this sale. So it has moved in the direction we expect given the circumstances. And, you know, the issue with Abramovich, and I think it's been the same from the beginning, he's been here for as long as he has, but we don't know that much about him. He's given one interview, and the idea that we're asking him to distance himself from Vladimir Putin, and he says he is a separate person and he's not connected to him, but you know, historically he has been, and that's on the record.
Yeah, we'll get back to that in a second, Tariq. I just want to talk about the sale, if it's okay, because he obviously wants a quick sale. How realistic is that in your opinion?
Well, Richard Masters, the Premier League chief executive, was at the FT Business of Football Summit this week in London on Thursday, and he said the quickest any sale could go through with any club is about 10 days, and that's the owner and director test, etc. But this is really complicated. You know, I was speaking to a lawyer yesterday who is trying to sort of drum up interest in this sale, and look, there's also this consideration, certainly from people in America, that are they going to be at risk by buying this club from this person at this time, given the issues you guys talked about? So it's not just a straightforward sale. And also the numbers we're talking about are quite significant. The one thing that I would caution is that the names that are in the press often aren't the ones that end up buying these teams, especially at this sort of high level. Serious people tend to get their business done, and it's just done. Abramovich being one of them. There wasn't 2 weeks of headlines, for example. We saw that, you know, just in the last few days, a Turkish businessman that none of us had heard of. I've contacted people in Turkey as well, in the football world there, and people at the Turkish FA I know. They've not heard of this person, yet we see these headlines describing this man as a billionaire. I don't know if he is or if he isn't a billionaire. And I've seen him announce his intention of planting a Turkish flag in London on his own Instagram page. I don't think serious people behave like that. But again, you know, we live in strange and interesting times.
Tariq, just on the basis of what we're seeing at the moment, do you think that there'll be a greater scrutiny on somebody like that than there would have been previously because of the situation that the English football has kind of resolved to deal with?
Well, Darren, you'd like to think so, because given the situation that not only Chelsea, the Premier League now is trying to extricate itself out of, every new owner is likely to have this degree of scrutiny that perhaps should have been there from the very beginning. We've had all and sundry come through the doors of Premier League clubs over the last 2 decades. The league, yes, is a juggernaut. It's extremely popular, but there have been dubious characters in the past who've been able to own Premier League football teams. They've strengthened this owners and directors test. But I think what football supporters are asking for is a degree of transparency around the process. How does it work? Who's allowed to buy the teams and who isn't? The protracted Newcastle sale, you know, you had that situation there, potential lawsuit from Mike Ashley about the Premier League process. So yes, more scrutiny, but perhaps more transparency as well.
The person who came in at Newcastle was Amanda Staveley. What did you think about her comments the other day where she thought that Abramovich had been treated unfairly? I know there was more to it than that. She didn't just say that. But what did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I asked her the question about separation because she's in a funny place because her owners, you know, have got this, you know, situation where they've got a facade almost of saying that the PIF is not connected to Saudi Arabia, even though the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is the chairman of this company. You require a degree of cognitive dissonance to sort of follow this. So she's in a funny position because the question was, what if one day, at the moment, the UK and Saudi have great relations. These kind of ownerships are precarious for this very reason. So coming from that point, she said she finds it very unfair that someone has their football team taken away from them because of a relationship they may have with somebody. I found the timing of those comments surprising, given what we're seeing, the horror that we're seeing in Ukraine, and and what government officials are seeming to suggest, although Mr. Abramovich denies it, this connection to Vladimir Putin, who is leading that war machine.
Tariq, yourself and a lot of our colleagues very rigorous in their scrutiny of not just this story, but others taking control of clubs in English football. Do you think what's happening now could potentially start to deter people around whom there might be question marks taking over English football clubs?
Yeah, I guess with that level of attention, there is that level of scrutiny. But then I must, perhaps we've got ourselves to blame for not, looking at this stuff in more detail for longer. This is years and years. It shouldn't require the invasion of, a European country by Russia for us to suddenly ask these sort of searching questions. But yeah, those people who are coming in, they will be under the microscope in a way that they haven't been previously, and perhaps in a way they should. One thing that I have noticed, though, is when you buy a football club, you do buy, at least in the first instance, this amount of support from the fan base. And if you are successful, that fan base, it could be in the millions, are willing often to forgive you anything away from the football team, as long as you are sort of improving their chances on the field. That I find a little bit troubling. That you pay a check and you've got this army of kind of defenders for you outside of your football business. We've seen that, I think, with some of the ownership, not just at Chelsea but elsewhere, and that is something you're buying too, I believe.
Yeah, that's actually a point that we were making before we came on air, wasn't it? It's quite an interesting debate, that one. Finally, Tariq, how do you see the situation at Chelsea playing out over the coming days, weeks, and maybe even months?
Yeah, I think for everyone, we don't know if these sanctions are going to be imposed. The government in the UK certainly has been going softly compared to, say, the European. We've had boats seized in Germany, Italy, and France of oligarchs, for example. None of that has happened in the UK, but it would be easier for all concerned if this sale goes through before any government action is taken. Perhaps that they're giving these guys time to unwind their assets. And my final point is, I think the person or the group that buys this team is likely to be someone we've not heard of or read about yet.
Well, great to have you on this morning, Tariq. Thank you.
Thank you.